Alright, it's Wayne DeFrancesco again, and I'm going to add to my series of swing analysis clips here with last week's winner, Camilo Villegas. A very interesting golf swing. He controlled the ball exceptionally well, better than anyone in the tournament, and is also a very good putter. So while he was keeping the ball down and hitting the ball in the fairway with a variety of low shots and slight curve shots, everyone else was floating the ball around, hitting it in the water. So let's take a look at some of the more interesting things. This particular swing was a straight-in shot into the wind. You could see how much he cuts off the finish. And he did that in various degrees to a lot of shots that he was playing last week. Since it was windy, none of the cameras were holding completely still, but we can still see some things even though the camera was moving slightly. One thing you'll notice is that his takeaway is pretty much perfectly on plane. Hands come slightly in. The head is going to start dropping pretty much immediately, so he's getting deeper into his right hip and his body is lowering, and that creates a fairly steep shoulder turn. Now, when you talk about swing plane, since he's right on the shaft plane, you might expect the club at the position where you mark it, where I mark it, at left arm parallel. You might expect the club to point conventionally over at the inside of the ball, but if I draw the plane line up and then draw his shaft line, you can see it's quite vertical at that point. Now, some things happen to swings in general when the shaft gets way vertical halfway up, and what normally happens is what we have now is a position that's essentially across the line, meaning that if he kept turning, his swing would look more and more like it was over there. Now, it's short of parallel by quite a bit, so it always looks like it's pointing to the left, but it's not pointing left enough for it not to be crossed. Now, a number of things happen usually when the thing is not crossed. Now, another thing that you can see here is if you look at the level of the elbows, you get an idea of why the club is steepening so much, is that his right side is staying very high and his hands are getting underneath the club and just taking it to a vertical position. Now, so when the shaft is pointing down at his toes like this, the only place this shaft can really go to hit the ball is to lay back somewhat, to get back into an effective approach plane. And normally what happens with a club this crossed is that the right arm won't have time to straighten, so you won't get the hands down as close to the body as someone who has the shaft more on the plane over there. So as he comes down, you'll see that on the approach, the right forearm is going to aim out above the ball, and his hands are going to come in above where they started. Now, the camera did move a little bit, so we can't get a truly accurate picture there, but you can see it. The hands are further away on the approach, and now he bends the club down with his left wrist and lowers it, and as that happens, you'll normally see the finish go left hard to compensate, and this thing comes out away over there to the left. So that's pretty consistent with his swing. It goes from vertical, drops back, comes in a little high, and goes left. Now, there's another item that usually happens when the club is coming in high, and you'll see it here. You'll see the pullback in the head from the top. If I draw a line on the front of his head there, you can see it. There is a lot of pullback. You saw the same thing in Ricky Fowler's swing, and Mickelson does the same thing. Now, it's not something that I would choose to teach to have the club up off the plane there and then dropping back, coming in high, pulling out of it. But you know, good players can make do with just about anything. And you'll see one of the reasons why he hits it so well is the element of sustain past the ball. So here's a slow-mo swing. It's not quite dead on from the front. The camera's a little forward, but you can see the intent to lean the club forward at impact and catch the ball and watch the shaft bend as the ground resists the club head, and look at the sustain past the ball. So he's way by it, and the club is still in line with the left arm. So I had used that word a couple times, sustain, without explaining it. So what we're doing here is we're calling this a line of compression, to use a golf machine phrase. And then to sustain that past the ball requires a full drive of the lower body to the left and around. But as you watch this swing, they just started it from sort of from the top. If you watch the lateral drive, you get a good amount of forward in the hips to drive the hands forward into the ball. And there was a couple other interesting shots, one of which was a Slo-Mo of Impact. So when he comes in, you can see definitely that the forearm is coming in high, but he's dropping it consistently, and then when he hits the ball, now this is another interesting picture here, because when he catches this ball right there, you can see the ball come up, the club is even with the level of the grass, and then if you watch the club just drive down into the ground and then go around to the left while the ball shoots off to the right. And there's the club going around. Look at the footwork, and look at the amount of openness in the hips there. So he's definitely rotating hard out of the way and left. Now watch where this club goes. It goes away over to the left again. So again, when the club gets steep, it has to lay back. The hands are going to come in a little bit high, but that's where bowing that left wrist down as he does and taking the club left is going to really help. Get the shot, say that he flew at about 270 with his 3-wood. And then something I've talked about in a number of swings, if you look at the top of his head and you watch the lowering, there's the first lowering, there's the second. So he ends up way down there, and you saw this in Tiger's swing, saw it in Hogan's swing. I see it in just about everybody's swing. So if you look at the depth of the hips and the way that he lowers into the ball, I think that's an essential part of a power move in a swing. So again, excellent control. He swings hard. He'll rebound it. He swings so hard, like on this one, and he'll also hold off shots a lot. But here, there's that rebound. So he's a strong guy, and he's bending the hell out of that shaft anyway. So there's a little look at Villegas, and I hope you enjoyed that.